This episode is sponsored by Celestron, manufacturer of high-quality telescopes and an industry leader in developing exciting optical products with revolutionary technologies.
I'm Kelly Beatty of Sky and Telescope magazine, and tonight we're going on a tour of the stars and planets that you'll see overhead during July. First, I'll offer some stargazing tips, then we'll check dates for the moon's phases, watch Saturn migrate into the evening sky, and tour the stars of summer. All that in just about 10 minutes, so grab your curiosity and come along on this month's Sky Tour. Let's start with the pop quiz. At this time of year, is Earth closer or farther from the sun? You might think it's closer because of summer's heat, but don't forget that it's winter right now for everyone living south of the equator. Anyway, early on July 5th is when Earth reaches aphelion, the point in its orbit most distant from the sun. On that date, we're 1.7% farther away than on average. Okay, let's get outside and observe the night sky. You know, most people think of stargazing as something you have to do with a telescope. Nope, that's not the case at all. The night sky is beautiful and often breathtaking when you just gaze upward with your eyes alone. So let me offer a few simple tips for getting the most out of what I call eyeball astronomy. As always, you'll see more of the night's offerings if you can find a wide open spot that's far away from bright lights. It doesn't matter whether you go to a neighborhood soccer field or trek far out of town. Anything you can do to get a darker location will help. Of course, you'll also see more stars when the moon is not bright. Next, you'll also see more by giving your eyes time to adjust to the darkness. You probably know that the pupils of your eyes expand in darkness, letting more light reach the retina, and that's part of it. But the sensors that our eyes use for night vision, called rods, respond to dark surroundings by secreting the protein rhodopsin, sometimes called visual purple. Rhodopsin gradually builds up as you stand there in the dark, fortifying the ability of your rods to see faint light. It takes your eyes about 30 minutes or longer to become fully dark adapted. By the way, any blast of white light, like from a flashlight or car headlights, destroys the rhodopsin, and when that happens you'll have to wait for it to build up again. For us northerners, July is a time of long, hot days. When the sky is hazy and stagnant, you'll see that the stars don't seem to twinkle very much because we're seeing them through relatively calm air. Astronomers refer to this as good seeing because what you see through a telescope looks steadier than would normally be the case. But when it's hazy, the sky's transparency or clarity isn't very good. On the best of nights, the atmosphere is both calm and transparent. That's the best time to enjoy the night sky. Finally, you might wonder how I can say something like, go out around 8 p.m. to see such and such. How can that be true no matter where you are? It's because time zones were created to closely match the sun's location in the sky regardless of your longitude. So what I see in the night sky at 10 p.m. in Boston is almost exactly what you'll see at 10 p.m. in, say, San Francisco. There can be a little difference that depends on your latitude, but for the most part, my stargazing tips will work all across the United States or in southern Canada or in Europe or even Asia. But not so much in the southern hemisphere, I'm afraid. Maybe someday, when Sky Tour gets wildly popular, I'll do a version for our stargazing friends in Australia, South America, and Southern Africa. As has been the case often this year, the moon's cycle of phases follows the monthly calendar pretty closely. New moon falls on July 5th, and a couple of days after that, watch for a slender crescent low in the west during twilight. First quarter follows on the night of July 13th, and the full moon on July 21st. Last quarter occurs late in the evening on the 27th. Let me point out a couple of things about the full moon on the 21st. First, it's called the full buck moon, so called by Native Americans because that's when they noticed new antlers on buck deer pushing out from their foreheads. And it's sometimes called the full thunder moon because thunderstorms are common this time of year. Also, for those of us at northern latitudes, you'll notice that the full moon doesn't get very high up in the night sky. There's a reason for that. A full moon is almost directly opposite the sun in the sky, give or take a few degrees. So, right now, as you're listening, stretch out your arms to your side so they form a straight line. Go ahead, no one's watching. Now, if you raise one arm, you have to drop the other to keep that straight line, right? So, in July, when the sun rides high up during daylight, the full moon is positioned low down. Just the opposite is true in winter. The sun is drearily low in the sky even at noon, but at night the full moon soars high above us. And that, by the way, is true whether you live in Alaska or Argentina. If you checked in for last month's sky tour, you heard me say that the pickings for planet watching were pretty slim during June, at least in the evening sky. That drought continues during July. Venus is still too near the sun to be seen, while Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn stretch out from the eastern horizon before dawn. But Saturn is gradually transitioning to the evening sky, and you'll be able to see it rising in the east around 11 p.m. early in July and around 10 p.m. by month's end. Meanwhile, Mercury is also moving into the evening sky, though you won't have an especially easy time spotting it. During the first half of the month, you can look for it very low in the west, still immersed in twilight, about 30 minutes after sunset. Try spotting the thin crescent moon at dusk on July 8th, and then follow an imaginary line down toward its lower right to locate Mercury. So sadly, there aren't any slam-dunk planets in the evening sky. However, there are lots of pretty stars and constellations to check out after the sun goes down, and we'll do that next. As the sun sinks from view, scan the western sky for bright stars. Easiest to spot is Arcturus, very bright and most of the way up from the southwestern horizon to overhead. Over to its right is the Big Dipper, seemingly hanging by its handle in the evening sky. Almost directly below Arcturus, by about 3 times the width of your clenched fist held at arm's length, is the icy white star Spica. It's the alpha star in the constellation Virgo, the Maiden. But there's nothing particularly ladylike about this stellar beacon. It's actually 2 stars whirling around each other so fast and so close that they've distorted each other into egg shapes. And it's a good thing that Spica is 850 light-years away. It outshines our sun by more than 12,000 times, with intense, lethally high-energy light. It's not the kind of star you'd want to have right next door to our solar system. Spica is one of only 4 very bright stars that are periodically occulted or covered by the moon. The other 3 are Regulus, Antares, and Aldebaran. Each star has its own occultation season, during which these cover-ups can occur monthly for up to several years. Spica gets its turn on the night of July 13th, when you can watch the dark limb of the first quarter moon creep closer and closer until the star's light is extinguished in the blink of an eye. For eastern North America, this disappearance takes place at around 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with the moon low in the west-southwest sky. Farther west, the cover-up happens at around 10 p.m. Central Time and 9 p.m. Mountain Time. If you're on the West Coast, sorry, this event occurs in daylight at least an hour before sunset for you. And here's a little factoid. Spica is represented, along with 26 other stars, on the flag of Brazil. It's the only star positioned above the flag's white band. Go check that out. To the left of Spica, by about 5 fists, is the bright star Antares, the heart of Scorpius. Can you tell that Antares has a reddish tinge compared to the icy white of Spica? Antares has its own claim to fame. It's a red supergiant, about 550 light-years away, and it's one of the largest stars known, almost 700 times bigger than our sun. In fact, if you swapped in Antares for our own sun, it would take up all the inner solar system out to the orbit of Mars and then some. To the left of Antares, by 2 or 3 fists, is a group of stars in the constellation Sagittarius that are shaped like a teapot. In fact, that's what astronomers call it, the teapot. Look for 4 medium-bright stars in the shape of a trapezoid that form the pot. Highest up is the pointy top. The handle is off to the left and the spout to the right. The whole thing is a bit bigger than your clenched fist. This is a fairly obvious star pattern, or asterism as astronomers call it. None of the stars in the teapot is particularly distinctive, but they are all closely matched in brightness, and that helps the patterns stand out. Finally, there's a meteor shower that peaks on the night of July 30th. It's called the Southern Delta Aquariids. That's a mouthful, but the clue here is that these shooting stars appear to radiate across the sky from the constellation Aquarius. For us in the Northern Hemisphere, Aquarius is well above the southern horizon for a couple of hours before and a few hours after midnight. So if you're out late and watching from a very dark location, you might see 10 or 20 of these per hour. You can start looking as early as 10 p.m., and that's when you might catch sight of an Earth grazer, an incoming bit of rock that strikes the atmosphere at a very shallow angle and takes several seconds to streak across the sky. Thanks for letting me expand your celestial horizons for another month. If you want more tips for viewing the night sky, including a free interactive star chart for any time or date, check out our website, skyandtelescope.org. If you haven't already subscribed, you can find this sky tour on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. And if you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please let me know by leaving a rating or review. I really welcome your feedback. And if you want to explore the solar system and universe more deeply, check out the full line of binoculars and telescopes available at Celestron.com. Sky Tour is a production of Sky and Telescope, a division of the American Astronomical Society, and is produced by me, Kelly Beatty. Next month, we'll look for steam coming from a celestial teapot and what that has to do with the Milky Way. Until then, I wish you clear skies.